Good morning, everyone. Welcome. So glad to be with you today as we awaken to the courage to soar. And this is an analogy for us actually awakening the potential within us to climb to new heights, to achieve more than we ever thought possible. And we're in the second quarter, and our whole quarter is focused on the courage to soar. And our gentlemen have been focused on that all weekend long. And I hear you have interwoven that into your renewal time together. And you're hearing it from a female voice this morning because I wanted Brian to be fully present with you and not have to put the talk together. So while you guys were playing, no, just kidding. I'm only teasing. All of us, every one of us here today have been given 886,400 seconds to spend today. And we're all going to spend them in some way or another. And most likely somewhere in that 86,400 seconds, you're going to go to sleep and you're probably going to wake up maybe once, maybe more than once. And metaphorically, we may go to sleep more than that. Maybe a lot more than that, but hopefully not here this morning. So there's actually a spectrum of consciousness from being totally asleep or maybe even not alive, that spectrum of no consciousness whatsoever, to the ultimate consciousness of being completely awake, completely aware, which is like the Buddha consciousness or the Christ consciousness, that consciousness that is completely at one with all that is. And all of us are somewhere on that spectrum, somewhere from that asleep nature to the fully awake nature. And all of us in this room may be at a different place right now. And matter of fact, I just want to share with you that last night I woke up at 1:22 and I don't think I fell back asleep. So my seconds haven't been spent in sleep. So hold energy for me that all that I say today makes sense. And that it blesses you. So that's my prayer. The presence of our awakeness, of our consciousness, impacts our reality. It impacts our life. Whether we're unconscious or conscious, life is happening. Life is unfolding. Experience is taking place. And to the degree of which we are awake, the greater experience that we can have in life. Maria Amos says that clarity and focus yield ease and grace. So fuzziness and disfocus yields, I don't know, but it may not be as awesome as ease and grace. What makes our consciousness conscious? Have you ever thought of that? You doctors in the area probably have thought a lot about that and written dissertations about them. But there is something that we do that makes our consciousness more awake. Tuned in, tapped in, turned on, aware of the moment in time. And what might be our potential for being awake in this lifetime? I looked up the definition because I knew you'd want to know. What is the definition of awakening? That we're going to use the talk today, the talk title, as a 3-part series, Awakening to the Courage to Soar. So awakening, what is the definition of awakening? According to dictionary.com, awakening is the revival of interest or action. So if a big clap of thunder happened right now, all of you would be fully awake. Making sure you're okay, making sure you're aware in the right place, what's happening, am I okay, am I going to be all right? And that awakening helps us. You see, our entire life, from birth to checkout, is orchestrated on our behalf to assist in our awakening. And those awakenings can be comfortable or they can be uncomfortable. They can happen as something that's different or difficult that we happen to experience in our life. Perhaps it's the passing of a loved one that changes our routines and our habits and how we spent our world and our time and our energy. And suddenly we're disoriented and we're not sure. And suddenly we're more awake and aware, like, what does this really mean? What is this really about? Why am I really here? So the difficulties, the disorientation can wake us up. There can be a discontent within us. See, every one of us in this sanctuary, everyone in this planet has been imbued by that which has created us with a potentiality, a possibility for who you could become in this lifetime. And when we get disconnected from that, when we get off course from that, there's this disconnect that comes from that off-trailness. We're off the trail of our potentiality becoming manifest. And there's a disconnect, a discontent within us. We just can't quite put our finger on it, but something's not quite right. So that discontent can be a wake-up call for us to live our lives in a greater and better way. And then there can be dreams. There can be those things that we want to accomplish that we've dreamed our whole life long, that I could sing like Celebration, that I could actually sing a note right now and feel confident in it. To touch your heart, to be the wake-up call, that clap of thunder that says this is important. Your life is important. Your potentiality is important, and those dreams imbued within you were put there by that which has created you, which knows you by name and wants you to experience and to express that. That presence, that being, that aliveness speaks to us through Jeremiah 29:11, which states, "For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for your welfare and not for your harm, to give you a future with hope." So when the difficulties, the discontent, the dreams come to pull us into a new awakened state, to awaken our interest, then we can step forward into life in a new way. Many of you know Myrtle Fillmore and her story, but some of you do not. So I'm going to share a very brief story. Myrtle Fillmore was the co-founder of the Unity Movement. She was diagnosed with tuberculosis in 1886. She was given a prognosis that she would only live for 6 more months. And she went to a lecture, just like you guys did today. You see the correlation? She went to a lecture and she left that lecture knowing something completely new, awakened. What did she grab a hold of? To change the trajectory of her life to certain death to an 83-year-old. She lived till she was 83 years old. What happened in her to awaken her? And what could happen in us here this morning to awaken us, to change the trajectory of our lives? What might you walk out of here today with in your heart and your mind? Let's take a look at that. Let's look at this courage. Okay, so we know what awakening is. We know it's about something getting our attention to start a new vision. The courage, where does the word courage come from? I'm so glad you asked. Courage comes from the Latin word cor, C-O-R, cor, which means heart. Heart. And then it morphed into the old French word, which means courage, and now it means courage for us. But courage comes from our heart, our heart's wisdom, our heart's passion. Courage comes to give us the strength to move us beyond, to move us through. I was telling my son this yesterday, who is in Germany. He is an exchange student in his senior year, and he's got the German language pretty much down by now, or at least most of it. And he was saying, "Mom, the German word for courage, which, by the way, also means bravery, is Mut, M-U-T. Now, for such a short word, it's got a pretty long definition. This definition of the German word courage means the handling of the spirit, the consciousness, how you think in a dangerous, critical, or desperate situation in which one energetically and fearlessly pulls through. Mut. You've got Mut. We all have Mut. It comes from the older German term Maut, which is M-U-O-T, which means the power of thought. Courage is the power of our thoughts landed in the passion of our hearts, which gives us the strength to begin anew, to forward through, to find a way to spread our wings and lift to a higher degree, to a greater expression of potentiality that the divine has created within us. Simon Sinek has nail down the why aspect. Many of you probably have seen that on the TED Talk. If you haven't, I suggest that you look it up. But Simon Sinek says that what really is passionate, what helps companies to succeed, is for them to know their why. Many times companies know their what. What do? They create computers. And how do they do it? They do it revolutionary. But they never can answer why. Now, do you want to go buy a computer from that company? No, but if you know the why, maybe the why of an organization was to heal and transform lives. It's to be an ever-expanding love, a community of love and acceptance where lives are transformed. When we know our why are we doing what we're doing, suddenly the how and the what are imbued with meaning. Because we have a higher understanding, a passion within our heart for the purpose of which that's taking place. Yeah, thank you. Myrtle, I want to use this. And I would suggest you pull out your bulletins. There's a whole page in there on the very back that you can take some notes, because you got homework tonight. You didn't know that, did you? You thought you were done on your retreat, didn't you? Your renewal, didn't you, guys? This page right here offers you something, and I want you to walk out of here today with a new idea in your heart of who you are and why you're here and what your life is about and how to step forward. All right, so let's look at Simon Sinek's message of why with Myrtle's life and what she heard, so we can maybe dissect it and understand to a greater degree what she walked out of that lecture from E.B. Weeks. Myrtle's why am I here? Why is this being here? She realized I am not the gene pool of my parents that has exposed me to tuberculosis, which is creating a life that is no longer going to be here. That was what she walked into that lecture with. She thought she was sick. She thought she was weak. She thought she was going to die. But in that lesson, in that she heard, I am a child of no less, nothing less. You are a child of. Wow, can you just walk out of here with that and I will feel happy? Really take that into your bones. Take that into your core. Feel what that feels like to be a child of God. Do you know what that makes you heir to? The kingdom, the absolute kingdom. That makes you heir to all possibility, all potentiality, all prosperity. It's God's good pleasure to give you these things. And if we can get this why, why? Because I am a child of God, created in that image and likeness, in the image of health and wellness, in the image of happiness, in the image of connection, of meaningful connection, in the image of creativity, in the image of passion and understanding and expression in this world, and how I make things manifest, and therefore, I am a child of God, and therefore, the how takes place because I'm a child of God. Because God is that presence and power, and it is operating through me, therefore, what comes into action? What comes into action, which is, I do not inherit sickness. It just sweeps that off the carpet. That's no longer a possibility. I am a child of God, therefore, I do not inherit sickness. I inherit health. I inherit the divine pattern of health and well-being. It's the natural state of me. So, and of you, and of all of us. So let's walk out of here with something today, okay? And let's break this down for our why, answering our why. This is where your pen and paper come in handy. What is your why? What are you here for? And I'm going to suggest that you take on Myrtle Fillmore's why. And you don't have to, you can choose your own. But I am a child of God. I am an expression of God. I am a creation of the divine. I am. And therefore, because of this divine inheritance, therefore, what? It's your blank to fill in. You need health, you need connection, you need prosperity, you need financial abundance. What is it that you need? The Kundalini to rush up your spine and that you are enlightened fully, aware, awake, alive, enthusiastic, loving the world and all the people in it and helping them to be more fully who they are? I see it in you. Fill in your blank so that you walk out of here today with a new why, a new how, and a new what. While you do that, I want to share with you a little story about soaring. Bishop Milton Wright was a pastor, and he would travel a lot on his journeys. And when he did, he would often pick up little toys for his children. So when he came home, he would give them to his children. And in 1878, he brought back a small model helicopter that was made out of wood and bamboo. And he gave it to his sons, and they were absolutely fascinated with the toy. And the mechanics. So Wilbur and Orville took that plane and developed a lifelong passion for aeronautics and flying. 25 years later, the Wright brothers found that they had the magic formula. And on December 17th of 1903, they succeeded in flying their own plane for 59 seconds and 852 feet. It was an extraordinary achievement that had not been done to date. It made them the first to invent aircraft controls that made fixed wing-powered flight possible. If you go into the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., you will find airplanes in there that traversed the Atlantic Ocean, that broke the sound barrier. You will find lunar landing modules, and you will find Mars rovers. There has been so much accomplished in the short 66 years from that first flight to a man walking on the moon. What is your potential? And where are you in the process of actualizing it? And what is Spirit calling you toward? What height is Spirit calling you toward? Humanity is at the precipice of so many breakthroughs. Paralysis is beginning to be healed by the process of taking stem cells, a person's own stem cells, with their own DNA and reintroducing them into a severed spinal cord, which recreates and regenerates the spinal fluid. A man who had a spinal cord severed actually stood up. So they're making progress with that. We're gaining on HIV, and they're modifying the white blood cells membrane so that the virus can't get in. What's next? Cancer cure? Maybe 20 years, 40 years from now, it's going to be the tuberculosis of this era that is no longer taking life. Now, I don't know that we have that calling here. Maybe we do. I wouldn't doubt it with you guys. You're awesome. You always wow me. I'm always amazed. But it may be something else that's calling you forward. And we often think that when we get that vision or that dream or that idea of the direction that we want to go in, that it happens in an ideal world. Like our movies happen in an hour and a half. The whole plot goes from crisis to development to resolution. And then we turn off the TV, and that's the way life is. It just happens that fast. It's kind of like a microwave your prayers kind of concept that, you get the divine idea, you pop it in the microwave, and you walk out with a full bag of popcorn. Well, it can pop that fast, but I don't know that it actually works that way. Did you know that Wilbur Wright was a bright and studious child? He was excelling in school. He loved school. He had planned to graduate high school and go to Yale University. And in 1885-86, that winter, he had an accident. He was playing ice hockey, and one of his buds, stick, whammed him right in the face. And it caused a lot of damage. He did not graduate from high school. He canceled his plans to go to college. Don't you do that, by the way. You go to college. And he stayed at home. He retreated into his family's home. And he read books from the family's library, and he helped to take care of his mother, who ironically had tuberculosis. And in 1889, only 3 years after Myrtle walked out of her lecture with a whole new trajectory, his mother passed from tuberculosis. Now that sounds very sad, doesn't it? And when things happen in life that take us out of the great stack of cards that we have, we think, it's over. We step out, something comes up in our way, and it's blocking our way, and it feels like a stopping point. How do I get to my goal from here? Life has a way of steering us in new directions. It's not a destination, and that's not the only destination. There are multiple opportunities that can unfold for you. And sometimes when we get a blocked road in one direction, it's there to serve us to turn into another direction that is more precisely in alignment with the potential that we carry within us, within you. So stopping points can be stepping stones to a greater idea, a greater life, a greater expression than we ever knew possible. I have a dear friend who went on a hiking accident when he was in high school, and he fell, he broke his spinal cord, and he's a quadriplegic now. That man has become a lawyer and is now a judge, and he's been helping others who are disabled to find support, assistance, and a life of meaning and value. Tell me that that's not maximizing his potential. It's amazing to bear witness to. Amazing. So Wilbur didn't stop there. He did get very depressed, and his injuries did heal for the most part, but he wasn't the same person. He went into business with his brother. They created a newspaper, and 3 years later, they created a bicycle shop because they loved mechanics. They loved to know how things worked. And when they realized that Otto Lichtenthal, the German scientist who was playing with aerodynamics, had died in a glider, they decided that they would pick up his research, they would go forward with it. Now, I don't think that would have motivated me, but it motivated them. We're all different. So Orville and Wilbur observed the birds' wings as they flew. And what they did for balance and control were just minute angles of their wings that would allow them to manage the airflow. And they tried to emulate this, and when they added a rudder to their wing, their fixed wing, they developed a concept called wing warping. And that allowed them to create that magic formula that created the first free, controlled flight of a power-driven, heavier-than-air plane. What little niggling is in you that's asking you to awaken, to pay more attention to the movement of a bird's wings? And how might that impact humanity? So it doesn't happen in a microwave fashion. It takes courage and strength to continue on the journey and to steer around and with minute adjustments, that presence and that power that is with us always and guiding us and directing us. We have to be aligned. We don't flap our wings incessantly. That gets us tiring after a while. Okay, these are all metaphors, obviously. We don't force it to happen. We don't force what we are wanting to happen in the world. We get in the flow. We get into that lift of spirit who's made our souls to soar. See what a bird is actually doing when it soars? Oh, I didn't realize this, but this is kind of like wings. Oh my goodness, little sleep. Sorry, guys. What a bird actually does when it soars is it spreads its wings on the thermal lift that is the heat rising off of the planet, this gorgeous planet that we live off. And it just uses that heat to lift it higher and higher and higher. So too is there a presence and a power that is with you and for you and wants you to succeed. And when you get in alignment with it, it moves you with such grace and ease. So how do we get in alignment? Someone asked me, yes, how do you do that? How do you get in alignment? By the way, the ASL sign for God is this, right? Lovely. Lovely. God. This is a symbol to all of us. That higher idea of that presence and power which is with us and for us is within us. And when we say our prayers, we take our current thought and we lift it to a higher degree through the practice of prayer. And when we meditate, we rest in that presence, and we allow that presence to inform us, to adjust us and our wings in a way that allows us to get into the flow, allows us to make things easier. That allows us to go forward. I just want to mention that the quantum field, whatever you want to call God, call it by what you will, it wants you to succeed. And its idea, the plans I have for you, saith the Lord, are plans for good. And if you could just glimpse the good in store for you, you would drop my will in a heartbeat and you would sprint in the direction of thy will being done. I told Brian this last week because I feel so fortunate to have met and married him. That I was like, honey, I would, if I'd have known, I'd have just sprinted in your direction and not dated anybody else. God has that and so much more in store for you, my friends. Tap into your awakeness. Walk out of this sanctuary with a whole new idea of who you are. Pull out that sheet of your why and know that who you are has been created to be here to complete its experience and expression to its highest degree. What is your homework? Who are you? What is your why? I am a child of God. What is your how? And therefore, because I know that, therefore, you create a life of experience and expression in harmony with the divine. I love you. I bless you. I'm so fortunate to be here with you. Namaste.
Thank you for joining us today. If you like the message, we invite you to like it or share it. And we also want to let you know that we're on Instagram, Twitter, and we'll see you again next Sunday on Facebook at 11:25.
We're a New Thought church where lives are transformed, and we welcome you to check us out. Check out our website, unityhills.org. We'll see you next week.
Namaste.